Okay, welcome on, Shmaria. Good to see you. And
Hi.
hi. Okay, so the subject of lashon hara. Mostly, I think we did the things, the problems that just have to say hello to Chaim Zev. Chaim Zev, welcome on. Good to see you. You're muted. You're muted. Just unmute.
There we go. Erev Tov. How are you?
Good to see you. This is Amish great. Whole Chabur is back, almost. Okay. And Shmaria, you're the group. We missed you in
I don't know.
the olden days, but Baruch Hashem, good to see everybody. So the subject we've been doing a couple of weeks was about lashon hara, and I think that everyone knows now that I say lashon hara, that's the given. But I think that sometimes the fact that we say that everything is usher maybe, and people take it as that's impossible. And then they just like go over everything. So we were trying to be magdir, what exactly is mutter, what is asr, and some of the things that are really mutter, l'chora, or at least there's a big tzad, and in certain circumstances, even the Chafetz Chaim also is matter many things. So I think that was important to clarify. Just to continue, if anybody has any questions they want to bring up or subjects, so please do. We'll continue with a couple of subjects just to finish what's on the list over here. And if anybody has any things to bring up, we'll continue with that. Sometimes people within the family, family lashon hara, the immediate family, or it means a little outer circle. So sometimes people feel like, of course, there's the lashon hara mishpachti, but there's no such heter. There is no such heter. Only again if it's going to be toelis, if it's going to be for a purpose. And usually it could be that it is for a purpose, but if it's not, so then there's lashon hara like anything else. Again, we said lashon hara means something that's degrading or damaging, and sometimes it's neither of them, and then it's not lashon hara. Or if everybody knows the facts already and you're discussing it, usually you'll be discussing it for a good reason. You want to be able to help them out or something like that. So surely it's not lashon hara. But just because it's family is not a heter to speak lashon hara. Theoretically, even husband and wife, if one of them would know something about one of the kids that is detrimental if the other spouse knows, so theoretically it shouldn't be said. But usually it's not like that. Usually it's important that both parents should know. And but just to point out that just to say degrading things, there's no heter because he belongs to me. The kids don't belong to us, and the brothers don't belong to us, and the parents don't belong to us. It's only when it's going to be for a good reason. Ari, I just want to say hello, Ari. It's been a long time. How did everybody? Baruch Hashem, everybody's flying in.
Hello.
Shalom.
Hello.
Great to see
Hi.
you. Okay, we'll have to get together in live one day. Make a get together. We spoke about Dan Lekaf Schus, and just to bring it up again, the Dan Lekaf Schus is very, very hegioni. It's very logical. We're not telling you to be Dan Lekaf Schus when it's against logic. It's putting the person on the scale together with the situation, and if it comes out that it's equal, and the greater the person is, even not if he's great, but in the issue that we're talking about, so he's not suspect that he would be over such a thing, or at least he has a good credit. So according to a person's credit, that's how much benefit of the doubt he deserves. And l'chora, it's very, very hegioni. The halach is saying, don't go against, don't stam. If you have room to suspect him, so why not suspect him? Why not give him the benefit? Why not give him the guilt? So it means that if there's a equal chance that he's innocent or guilty, so assume that he's innocent. Why assume that he's guilty? But we're not saying that you should bend backwards in a way that it doesn't make any sense. You might say that a person does bend backwards a bit for a brother, somebody he loves very much, but he still has to be within the realm of hegioni. Once it's not hegioni, so then he says, what can I do? Even if he hears it's about his brother, he'll also, okay, what can I do? So that's what the Torah wants. The Torah wants you to love your brother very much and give him the benefit of the doubt the way you would your brother. But when sometimes you see the books that they go way out and they say all kinds of stories, even it might be true, it might be a true story, but not that anybody was expected to think of that, the identical twin brother or something like that, that he saw him do something. It means to be hegioni. So Dan Lekaf Schus is not a mitzvah which is like a chok and doesn't make sense. It makes a lot of sense. It makes very much sense, and we all should expect that. We should want it also. We spoke about a davar for some if something is public knowledge or So the public knowledge doesn't always mean that it's true, but everybody's talking about it. So you're allowed to say over what everybody is saying. As far as believing it, that's another subject. One point is to be allowed to say it, that's what everybody says. It's in the newspaper, that's what everybody says. That doesn't mean that everything is true in the newspaper or what everybody's saying, not necessarily. So they have to divide between speaking and or listening, whatever, hearing or believing. If something's before some, so the reason why it's more lenient over there, so to speak, is because it's assumed that you're going to hear about it anyway, or the listener is going to hear about it anyway. But that doesn't mean that you're allowed to believe it. How much do you need to be able to believe? So the Chafetz Chaim talks about Bezdin. In those days, it was a Bezdin, whatever it was, and when it came to the Bezdin, they were Eidim, and then, so he says anything less than that, so you don't know that it's true. There is something we'll talk about that. There is a heter of some, we'll say right away what the heterim are, but in general, even if something is before some, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's true. You could say it over because anyway the person's going to hear about it. You could hear it because anyways can be heard about, but you wouldn't be allowed to believe it.
I mean, it could be we discussed this in the past. Why is lashon hara such a terrible affair?
So if we defined that it means to degrade somebody or to damage somebody, so I would think that explains how you're. The reason when the Gemara says that it's like I don't think that it means when somebody says that something not so. The lashon hara also has different levels. Even when the Gemara says the chomer of lashon hara, I don't think it means that every small lashon hara that a person is going to say has that chomer. We see the chomer that we see what lashon hara does. It can be extremely damaging. It can, there's no question. In any field that a person gets slandered, so it could destroy him. And no question. We don't have to give examples, but so there we say that it could be as damaging as avodah zarah, gila, rice, and shvichas damim, and it's on the same list over there. And sometimes it says, he can lose his chelik and olam haba. I think it's such a lashon also. It could bring to that. Sometimes it comes that you shoot an arrow and you don't know where it's going to end up. You don't know what happens with that lashon hara. People are affected in their businesses. People are affected in their marriages or in getting shidduchim and whatnot. The case of Doeg Adomi with David HaMelech, how it happened that he was being chased so much by Shaul to be killed because of Doeg Adomi, the lashon hara that they said, Motzi Shemra, whatever you want to say, Novi HaKohen, and what the Gemara gives. So it could be extremely, extremely damaging. There's something special about the fact that it's with the mouth, that it's speech, that is the damaging, and that's going to be probably going to be something which is more ruchani, like behind the scenes, seguli. That power of speech is a ruchani thing, and it has a lot of power. And Rabbi Shalom Varmaser, he said he was medayik some things about the Meraglim, that when a person says speech, so his opinion, so to speak, or his label, the way he defines something, is considered in Shemayim. It means that his opinion or testimony, whatever you want to call it, when he says something about somebody, so it's dealt with in heavenly court, as if the heavenly court is hearing what he's saying. And he made an effect. He made an effect on the person. It doesn't mean that the person is definitely going to be damaged, but it means that he's attacking. He's attacking the person, and there's an attack in this world that people hear and they think bad of him, and there's an effect by that. Even just the image alone, even if they're not going to do anything to him, the image that his image is marred by in the eyes of people, that's already a very big damage. And it might even be that in the heavenly court also he's damaging him. So there talks about the spirituality. I think that is the Maharal talks about how the lashon, the fact that it's with his tongue, there's something spiritual about that. So that might be something deeper, not on the surface level. On the surface level is because he caused the actual damage or degradation, but it could be something that's more ruchani about lashon hara that might be more severe.
And how would we extend lashon hara to speaking bad about Eretz Yisrael? There's nobody really feeling bad, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So I think that you're right, that the point would be that he's speaking against Hashem when a person speaks about lashon hara. But you have to talk about the fact that when Hashem gives us the present, this is the present that Hashem gave us. And when people speak bad about it, they're saying that the present that Hashem gives us is not worthy. I heard from Rabbi Zilberman, I don't remember if I saw it in Chazal, but you see that the onish of the Meraglim was worse than the Egel. The Egel, they were forgiven, And even if we own pakti pakadati, but the Maisa they were forgiven, and the plan continued to go on to Eretz Yisrael, but by the Meraglim, then it stopped, and he can't go further, and then they had to die in the Midbar 40 years. Everything stopped. We would think maybe the Egel was worse than the Meraglim, but the way he explained it was that there's somebody, let's say a father, son, whatever you're going to say, whatever kind of relationship, that he sinned against the father, whatever he didn't. The father told him not to, either a certain instruction, or he went to a different source instead of the father, whatever it might have been, like Avodah Zarah. Hashem says, don't go to Avodah Zarah. They went to Avodah Zarah. But when the son is saying that everything the father is promising, all the good that the father wants to give to the son says, like that's like he's not a son. That's saying like he's saying to the father, like you're off. Like you don't know what I need. You don't want to give me the best, or you don't know what the best is for me. Here, Hashem said the whole problem stuff from the beginning, and all the whole going to Mitzrayim, the whole bris ben Abasarim, and then it's for Seisi, Vitzalti, Vigalti, Vilakachti. Everything was in order to come to Eretz Yisrael, and then after all that, we're ready to go into Eretz Yisrael, and then they say no, better let's go back to Mitzrayim. That's like inexcusable. That's unforgivable. That means that. Can't go on. That means that they're saying that the present that Hashem wanted to give them. So that's lashon hara over there. So I think that's like very, very chamor. The Gemara then the Ksubas talks about Eretz Yisrael is very, very makbid, and even about the Gemara says all kinds of things in different places about Eretz Yisrael. Not to say something bad. They were Tanam or Amiram. I think that even the natural things, if they were in the sun, they would go into the shade. That they shouldn't feel the heat of Eretz. It shouldn't be overheated. It shouldn't be uncomfortable. If they always made that, they shouldn't have a bad water about Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara even says that the Ganavim of Eretz Yisrael are chashuva than the Ganavim of Chutz La'aretz. I've got lashon of the Gemara, but it says such a lashon over there that people have to realize that Eretz Yisrael is Hashem's land. Hashem is inviting us into His land. That Hashem is bringing us into His land. So if you don't understand it, so let's learn it more. And what does it mean, Eretz Yisrael? But there's people don't realize that, and they talk about Eretz Yisrael as a regular land. It's a terrible chilul Hashem. Even if Chalila, there would be something that's more in Chutz La'aretz than Eretz Yisrael, it should be a pain. It should really be pain. If a person thinks that the ketchup of Chutz La'aretz is better than the ketchup of Eretz Yisrael, he's supposed to be pained by it. They shouldn't be able to say it even. First of all, it's not true. But even if it would theoretically be, so then it should have to be there. How can I say it? How can I say it? It's like just a mashal of an old-time mashal. If you have a mistress, that the Melech and the Matronisa, the king and the queen, and they had a son, and then for whatever reason the queen was thrown out, the mother of that son, and then the Shifcha took over, and the son of the expelled queen, he sees how beautiful she is. The more beautiful she is, the more it should pain him. Shouldn't be able to, like somebody once told me, somebody that was new to Judaism, and he said he was looking at the mosque over there from the rooftops of the yeshiva, and he saw what a beautiful building. Like after I fainted, I was trying to explain to him that even if it would be beautiful, so it should be as beautiful as it is. It's not beautiful. It's shikut shomim, a disgusting devastation that's on them harabais. But even if someone would think that it's a beautiful building, it should pain them all the more. It's like that's the shifcha that's taking the place of the Beis Hamikdash. That's supposed to be the place of the Ashras Shechin and Am Yisrael. And now that there's an apostle over there, so the fact that it's beautiful is something to dwell on. It's something to cry about. So I think that would maybe be the idea of lashon hara and Eretz Yisrael. Or maybe there's something more that I don't know, but that a beginning. When is it mutter to trust the lashon hara? When could you believe lashon hara? So the Chofetz Chaim says when there's a bezdin, and they accepted eidos and regular testimony, Kabbalah eidos. The problem is that nowadays we don't have bezdin. More or less, I think we could say like a general idea that we don't have this anymore. And if there's something to be verified, we don't have that system anymore of a bezdin. And even when there is a bezdin, it depends who's bezdin, what bezdin, and it's hard to say anything's in bezdin. It's pretty hard to say something's been verified by bezdin. So this was discussed in the call. I can't say that it came out a definite answer. Of course, if the person himself agrees and he's not. The Chofetz Chaim says even if he doesn't deny it, sometimes you have to take into consideration. He's not denying it because he knows he's not going to believe, whoever it might be. Not always the silence of the, sometimes it is. but it can't always be accepted as a proof. But Rabbi Vormer, he didn't say that he's poskening, but it came out in the discussion that he said it sounds good, but he can't say for sure. The same way we said an example before that on the Kafschos, someone gets up in the morning and he hears on the news something terrible about a relative. So the first reaction is going to be can't be, denial, can't be. And then whatever he does to try to justify it, and it's not true, they're framing it, whatever it might be. He didn't mean it, whatever the case is going to be. If eventually, after a couple of days, whatever it is, he says, it's true. If a person would accept it even about his own beloved relative, according to the facts that are flying around, so that would be the amount of evidence that's necessary that he should be allowed to believe lashon hara also. That was his hagdara. Not to say definite, but that would make sense.
Rebbe, sorry, because it was also talked about the case with the Bezin. What is the process nowadays with verifying the Bezin? Because the recent case with the author, apparently it was verified with Bezin, but I couldn't imagine that was done with two Eidim with Hasra. Like, I didn't understand.
I don't know if the issue is Nafka Asura. No one's going to punish. No one was going to punish him in a way that he need Asura. The question is if he's guilty of anything that was accused of. And then the question will be about keeping him away from any kind of a danger that he could cause. And he's not ra'ui to teach our children. He's not a figure that we're going to teach our children. So
I heard that a Bezdin said that they had received enough testimony to come out and publicize.
Okay, so the problem was that he didn't. It seems that he didn't show up and whatever he said. And it doesn't seem like it was a regular Haggadah's Bezdin with the regular Haggadah. He didn't want to if he didn't come. I don't know. The truth is just about that case. What is our besides the halachas if it's mutter to believe when it's mutter to believe or not? People, is there purpose for us to verify the truth of that case? Like, in other words, what's the difference to us? If there is a difference, then yes. But if there's no difference, so we should be more busy, with the other things that have value to. If there's a question about taking out the books, there's no value to the books anymore because it's the association. If whatever you're going to say, true or not true, whatever it is, the association with that author now is not educational anymore. So I don't see any value to the books. To know exactly what happened, we talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it in this forum, but the fact about suicide was not treated the way it's halachically supposed to be treated. Someone who commits suicide that's not supposed to be covered for him. No levaya, no hespedim. It's not supposed to be mechubad. They weren't supposed to ignore it. I don't know what happened over there. I heard that it was mechubadik levaya. That doesn't seem to be halachically true. There's no such thing about he was so pressured and cornered that it wasn't honest. That's not how halacha goes. The halacha clearly says not like that. So I don't know what happened over there. Who's in charge? I don't know. The point of learning from that whole story, whatever we're supposed to learn on the side that it's true. There's plenty to learn from it, and nobody should trust anybody. It wasn't like he's a big Talmud Chacham that, you see what a Talmud Chacham is. There wasn't a Talmud Chacham. He was a successful writer, and I think that's the extent to how much that should be taken. And don't think that's because you're in the Haredi community or any kind of community that's going to protect you. You have to be learning Torah and doing what it says, and especially taking all the precautions that Chazal say about arayos. Don't trust yourself. And when a person gets into a high category of fame, he starts thinking too much of himself, and it's hard to think of himself as a person who has limitations. Person has limitations. Also, another mussar to learn out of that whole story is that all the greatness in this world is a big garnish, because as high as he got, it just made him fall harder, and all of that was not worth anything. The fame in this world is very, very fragile and passing, and not something to be makane. Just to keep to the subject of what Hashem is sending us to do in this world, and to do it to the best of our ability. And this person has to realize he makes mistakes and to chew on them right away, make the rim, and keep a focus on going further.
Rabbi, is
I-
there,
Yes, please.
I just on the, not in this case in general, but in the Uf, wasn't there a Gemara in Moed Katan or Chagiga? I'm maybe mixing up. Dafka there that you're supposed, that if there's a Shmua that comes, that you're supposed to publicize, there's a pasuk, I think in Mishlei, if I recall.
That you're supposed to publicize. I'm not sure what you're referring
That
to.
there's a pasuk in Mishlei that if the Noef gets punished from Shemaim, then people will think he's a tzaddik.
Yes. There's a Gemara, Mefarshim ben Asachan Nefin, that you're supposed to publicize Rishon. Yes, that's true. That is true. He's saying, what's the purpose? There is truth to it that when a person is a Russia, so there is a thing about publicizing it. If he's a secret Russia, the people don't know about it. So then, but then the question would be, how do you verify that he's a Russia? You have to have enough evidence to know that he's a Russia. And if we'll say the case of the Bezdin, they verified he's a Russia, and people think that he's a tzaddik, they're supposed to publicize it. Besides the fact to keep people away from him sometimes, which is very relevant nowadays, but also that if bad comes upon him, people shouldn't say, "Oh, you see, it's tzaddik suffers." They should know that he's a Russia, and other reasons why it's good to publicize a Russia. But that is when it's verified. True. There's another point. Yeah, go ahead. You want to say something?
I just, if I recall, the Gemara says that if Shmuel come from more than not from his haters or something, maybe
Right, so, yeah, I'm not sure which. I remember Gemara, but I don't recall exactly what it says. There's Chofetz Chaim talks about these things. Could you trust? Could you rely on a shmua, on a rumor, a kol? Is that enough to rely on? So he goes that you're not allowed to rely on a kol, even a kol of the low pasuk. Over there, it's not a kol of the pasuk. The Gemara says it will last a day and a half, and there's nobody that hates him that's being mostly the kol. So it talks about what's considered a kol, but the Gemara there is not talking about believing lashon hara. Chofetz Chaim says that you still would not be allowed to believe it. The Gemara over there is not talking about halacha. The Gemara over there is talking about how does it go? That a person is not chashud about something only if he actually did it, or it's more like a Musa Gemara. It's not halacha Gemara. It wouldn't happen if he didn't have some kind of connection to that Avera also. But as far as trusting it and believing it that it's a truth, so the Chofetz Chaim says from a different Gemara that you cannot trust a rumor, even if it's a kol of the law pasuk, even if it's a rumor that's been going on for a day and a half, which is considered a steady rumor. It's not enough to rely on for the Raisa. And he says lashon hara is the Raisa, so he wouldn't be. He says it's not enough to trust. But he does bring Gemara. Also, we had in the Daf Yomi, I think there were 2 times already that we had a case of Sanu Shemane, that if somebody's the rumor's bad about him. Sanu Shemane, so it says that you're allowed to act upon it. They put him into Nidoy. And also the Gemara, end of Megillah, end of the third parak, I think over there it says you're allowed to be mavazim. The Gimel Shin, it says that you're allowed to be mavazim somebody who's sanu shemane. They have bad news about him, bad rumors about Obi. Usually it means arayis. So over there the Chofetz Chaim says that pshat is that it's many times. It happened many times. There are many bad rumors about him. So then he says that that's already something to rely on, and it seems even that you're allowed to rely on it and to believe it. That the whole city is not going to make a mistake many times. If it's a one-time thing, that a rumor came out, even if it's a persistent rumor, but it's a one-time thing. So then he says you can't trust it. But if something comes that happens many times, so then he says on that, he says that it is enough to trust and to rely on as a truth. There's also a Gemara that he says that says you can rely on. It's called Dvar Manikorim. If you have some kind of evidence. Dvar Manikorim means that it's noticeable, it's recognizable, something's there. It doesn't mean exactly on the point, but there's something that you know. The Dvar Manikorim has to be that you know it. If the news includes the Dvar Manikorim also, so you don't know to believe the Dvar Manikorim. But if you see something, and that leans that the reports that are going around him are true, or that whatever lashon hara it is that you heard, that there's reason that it fits, that something looks very suspicious. So it's hard to know exactly what's called Dvar Manikorim, but there is a level already that's going to, this is probably what Rav Shalom Varmasa would be based on, that if you know enough that what you see with your own eyes, you see something that, or that evidence already, the Dvar Manikorim is proven, so then you're allowed to believe the lashon hara, which says something that fits with that evidence. Over there, the Gemara talks about David, if everyone knows the story from the Navi, that when David was running away from Avshalom, so Mephibosheth didn't come, but his Eved, Tziva, came, and David asked him, "Where's Mephibosheth?" And he said that he didn't want to come with you. He wasn't loyal. He's not loyal to you, and he figured maybe he'll be able to get Malchus back because he's from the Beis Shol. And David said that you can have the estate. Means he seemed to have accepted lashon hara, and he said that you could keep the estate of your master, which means that there's a royal estate over there. After that, the Gemara says when Mephibosheth came, he said that Avdachari money, Avdiri money, something like that. That he tricked me. He was lame. Mephibosheth was lame, and he wasn't able to get on the donkey himself. And he told Tziva that he should, and he just ran away and left him over there. He wasn't able to come to David because he didn't have his assistance, the assistance of his slave. And David said, "Ata v'tziva techalku asasadeh." So divide the estate. And the Gemara talks about it with the Machlokas Rav and Shmuel, if David was guilty of accepting lashon hara or not. That Rav says that he did an avera, kibul David lashon hara, and Shmuel says no. He saw something about Mephibosheth that the Gemara goes in. They have to go into the Gemara more to see what that Dvar Manikarim was. That it looked suspicious. The suspicion, we don't understand what we learn the Gemara. It's hard to know what the suspicion is. Rashi's Pshat, Masha, everybody, it looks pretty difficult. It's not such a strong suspicion. The other way looks. So it's hard to figure out from the Gemara what the suspicion was. But if something is Dvar Manikarim, if there's something that's going to be called Dvar Manikarim, that you know that I see the facts and the way I speak to him and the way he answers, it looks like lashon hara is true. So then you could believe it also. Those are the Gedarim L'chara believing lashon hara.
Thank you.
If anybody has anything, if not, we'll continue a little bit. On a minor, a katan. Are you allowed to say lashon hara on a katan? So, are you allowed to mazik a katan? The answer is no. You're not allowed to be mazik a katan. You have to pay. Also, if you damage a katan like a gadol. So the pashtus is also that if any kind of damage or degradation also. The Chafetz Chaim seems to say that the only problem is because it can cause damage to him. And the Achronim after the Chafetz Chaim, they talk about why doesn't the Chafetz Chaim say about degradation also? And a lot of people talk about what the Chafetz Chaim might have meant, but it's all speculation. And the pashtus is that we don't know why the Chafetz Chaim didn't write it, but not only damage also degradation. To degrade a katan also is also like any other human being. Of course, there are things. Maybe the Chafetz Chaim meant there are some things that are considered childish, and it's not considered degrading for a child to do those things. Okay, but there are things that even for a child is also degrading. So if it's considered degrading, so you shouldn't be allowed to say it about a child either, unless of course it's toelis again, like anybody else. But the yachas to the child should be also the same as an adult, that you're not allowed to say lashon hara about a child either. About apikoros. So there's two kinds of apikoros. One is apikoros who's called mumul hachis, that he's doing it in spite, not because he enjoys, not because he's getting any benefit. Even if the kosher meat would be the same price as the treifa meat, he'll eat treifa meat, then he's called yatsa machlal amisecha. He's not considered part of the Jewish people, and there's no Isser lashon hara about him. But if he's a mumul te'avon, means that he would like to do the mitzvahs, but if his desires go first. So if the meat tastes better than the kosher meat, or if it's cheaper, so that's when it'll fall. So that's called the mumul te'avon, which also is mazid and terrible. But the Chafetz Chaim seems to have. There's a question. The Achronim find like contradictions in the Chafetz Chaim if he considers that he's out of the how do they say out of the fold, whatever the word they would use, is their heter to say lashon hara on him or not, means for no reason again. If there's for a reason, either because you want to show how the over Yavera are bad or something like that, that might be called toelis. But just for no reason at all, is I want to talk about these kind of apikosim. So the Chafetz Chaim, it's not clear. It seems to contradict himself. We don't know the answer. So if for no reason, it's better not to, I guess. Even if he's a mumer, he's an avarian, but he's doing it l'teyavon. Nowadays, in general, we have an issue with all these chilonim, all of the non-religious. That the question is, are they considered a tinuk shenishbo or not? Since they weren't taught since youth, they were taught animosity against Torah observance. They don't know anything. And if you talk to some of them, you see they know nothing, sheva nothing. So is that considered like it's not his fault or not? So in general, the post can leave it as a suffix. And if not necessary, I guess it's not. There are other things there are other things you can talk about. On a goy, surely there's no lashon hara. There's no lashon hara about a goy. But as we said before, people should be more busy doing. They should have what to talk about besides gossip and slander for no reason. There's a issue about it doesn't have exactly to do with this subject. Maybe one more on it. There's one subject at the end that's not mamish the subject, so maybe leave it for the last. But there's something called dilturia. Dilturia is a expression that's talked about like a public slander, like on a whole group. I'm not sure if the word literally only means on a group. It could be maybe on an individual also. But this is also a big problem that it isn't only us to say lashon hara on a specific person, individual. It's also on a group. This city or this party, or whatever you want to say. This all those things. Also, it's on a wholesale, package deal on many people. This shul, this whatever in the community, you have different groups, whatever it might be, or comes from their Ashkenazim, Sephardim, Hasidim, Misnagdim, all these kind of things. So there's lashon hara on that also, and it's even a big lashon hara because you're saying it about tens or hundreds of thousands of people. So that's called dilturia, especially on Am Yisrael as a whole. So there's the same as lashon hara, and it's very, 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 very chamor. There's even in Yerushalmi they bring down. I forgot the names exactly, but there were two Amorim that we're familiar with. I think Rish Lakish was one. I think Rish Lakish was the one who was the one who was standing up for against the dilturia. I forgot the name of the other Amora. They were going on donkeys. They were going and they were passing. The question was to go to a certain city, to lodge in a certain city. And he said, "Why?" The other one said, "Why should we go to that city? They're mecharef u'megadev." Mecharef u'megadev is a very, very serious thing. If they call them like they're blaspheme, they're going to be overshone. He said, "We shouldn't go to that city." So Rish Lakish got off his donkey and he took a clump of earth and he put it into the other Amora's mouth. And he said, "You're speaking about Am Yisrael." So that's like real chiddush.
I have a question. We mentioned the Chet Meraglim before. Nowadays we live in Eretz Israel, and if someone complains about, let's say, how hard it is to live here, or financially, or any other complaint. Like people are used to complain in everyday life. Is it considered a lashon hara on Eretz Israel and should be avoided, or it's not?
I would think that if he's saying it, if he says it in a mechubadik way, he says it b'lashon kavod, he would say that the schus to live in Eretz Israel is so great, and it says Eretz Israel nicknames be Yisurim, and he sees that this is part of the Yisurim, maybe that it's hard for him to have parnasa. But he doesn't look at it in a degrading way. He doesn't speak in the derech hamevazeh that Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz there's so much money available and this. He speaks for that, and in Eretz Yisrael he makes that it's hard to make. If he talks about that in the lashon kavod, I'm not ra'ui. I don't have the halavai that I should be zocha, and it's willing to be moser nefesh. That's what I made the other day.
Pointing out the difficulties is considered a lashon hara, even in a nice way.
I think that he could be said in a way that if it's for a purpose, then surely if he's trying.
No, just
about the difficulties. Then I would think if you're saying it like that, then I would think that it's also included that it's a genai to say bad about Eretz Yisrael. Always trying to find the good, and if he would speak to somebody who sees the good in Eretz Yisrael, he would see there's so much good. A person has to learn how to see the good in Eretz Yisrael. Sometimes there's some kind of a ruach of miraglim that goes on in all generations. And people, I remember when I came to Eretz Yisrael many years ago, and the cheder where my kids were going to, very, very from cheder, very, very from cheder. And they asked us, we're the Americanas, the Americans, about the fresh air of New York. Okay, the fresh air of New York. Everybody knows you come to Eretz Yisrael, the first thing is you take a breath of air. And this is like, I never had anything like this. And the little Yerushalmi kids, they were poisoned to think that the air in New York is the chashava air, is mamish meraglim, mamish arrogant. So, and also taxi drivers sometimes, they say something, I say, what are you talking about? Like, they have some kind of dream of Chutz La'aretz. I could say, Eretz Yisrael is more beautiful than anything in any place in Chutz La'aretz. So,
isn't there a chiluk between a person processing their feelings and a person who, whether it's b'mezid or b'shogeg, trying to discourage people from making aliyah? I mean,
no, but even if it will be, even not to discourage, just to talk about the difficulties also needs caution. To compare Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael and to say in a way that Chutz La'aretz is better, a person should be very hesitant.
Dafka the Chutz La'aretz is better?
in a way to say that Eretz Yisrael is lacking something. It's very difficult. The person should find it very difficult. Maybe we're going off the subject. It's not much the question of lashon hara, but a person should be very concerned about not saying anything that derogatory about Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara is always looking to say the praise of Eretz Yisrael. And if a person looks, he's going to find. But it is an issue. So I'm saying if there's something to Elis has to figure out how to make parnasa this, but always to find the mile of Eretz Yisrael. You talk about Hashem's palace, you talk about Hashem's land, and even if it's the Churbanah, even if it's not the way it's supposed to be, it's a problem. It's a person's supposed to be pained. One of two. Either he finds the good of Eretz Yisrael, or if something comes up that there's something missing in Eretz Yisrael, he's supposed to be pained by it. He's supposed to be pained. It should be difficult for him, and it should be expressed that way. And like the Gemara, I think it's a beautiful example. The Gemara says the Ganovim of Eretz Yisrael are better than the Ganovim of Chutz La'aretz. Isn't that something? The Ganovim of Eretz Yisrael are better than the Ganovim of Chutz La'aretz. The Gemara went to the trouble to find even that. And the Gemara gives the example that these Ganovim, they said this, and these Ganovim said that. And the Gemara talks about even Amoram. It says Takifi of Eretz Yisrael is even better than the Chassidim of Chutz La'aretz. So talking about all of Amoram, the Gemara says who they are. And it says that the ones in Chutz La'aretz that are in Israel that are considered the aggressive ones, like a Shlokish, he was the aggressive one, but he was more Mechabed Tamid Chachamim more than somebody that was considered a big Chassid of Chutz La'aretz. So the Gemara is always, the Eretz Yisrael Chutz La'aretz is like, this is Hashem's place. So I think that it's an issue that should be, at least considered and focused and to try to always find the good in Eretz Yisrael. And it's a Shavach to Hashem to be able to say that the land that He gave us is good. Tovah Oretz, Mod. There was one more question. There's a couple of minutes left. So there was an issue about, again, it came up in the yeshiva, came up in the kollel, about, it's not exactly the question of lashon hara, but it comes up. The example was given. I'll say an example, the case history. That there's a school that had issues with the municipality, and they wanted to make a protest by City Hall. And they told all the parents to come. The parents are coming to make a protest means you're coming to you're damaging the mayor of the protest. Years ago, nothing to do with today's mayor, but you're coming against the municipality and saying that you're doing bad. Now, each of the parents, do they know? Do I know what happened in the negotiations between the school and the municipality? Maybe the school was negligent; they didn't take care, they didn't do what they're supposed to do, and this and that. Do I know the whole story? So, could you trust the leader? And I don't have to investigate everything in order to take action. Even though you're taking action, you're going to go to the protest, you're going to put up a sign, you're going to say, and you don't know anything. So are you allowed to trust the leader? Or I can't trust you. I don't know. Maybe the municipality is right. How can I believe the lashon hara, so to speak, even if it's the toelis, means the principal, the administrator, maybe they're right in what they're doing. But I don't know. I can't believe you, and I'm going to go and do action. So it came up l'chora. It's a general question, also many ideas. That can you trust the leader of your group, of your family, of your whatever it might be, your Hasidus, your Rosh Hashiva? I don't know. So it comes up not only in this case where it's impossible for the average person to be able to go find out, and a municipality goes to the mayor says exactly, they don't have time. They're not going to be able to tell each person what happened and have a discussion. So in those things, the average person is not able to verify more, and he's allowed to trust his leader. The leader, the responsibility is on the leader's head. And if he did wrong, it's his fault for everybody that had to follow him. But they can't do different. Why should they do? They can't verify everything. It also comes up not only in this issue about lashon hara, but in every case. Are you supposed to learn Mikra or Mishnah or Gemara or whatever it might be? And his Rosh Hashiva says not. So is he responsible? He doesn't know any better. So the chorah over there, the issue would be if he's possible to whatever he's possible to verify, he's smart enough to figure out something's wrong. He goes to his Rebbe, to his Rosh Hashiva, and he doesn't understand. It doesn't make sense. So if he's smart enough to bring up the issue and challenge it and ask other people and find out, so he's responsible to do that. If he can, so he's not responsible. Each person is not responsible to invent the wheel again. He can't. Either he's not able to because he's not smart enough, or because in the situation like the case of the school protest, he doesn't have the means of verifying. So he could rely on his leader, and it's going to be the leader's responsibility. It's going to be on the Vasimim B'Roshechem, the Gemara Dashins Vashamon B'Roshechem, that the leaders, the guilt of the tzibur is upon the leaders. It has a lot of working hazards. A person becomes a leader, he has a lot of, it's not an easy job. It means he has to make sure that his decisions are right, or else the responsibility of all the individuals that are following him is going to be on his head. But the people themselves, they have to do their best. If they could verify something on their own, they do have to. If they can't, so then they can rely on their leader. Okay. If
Thank you,
anybody,
Rabbi. Does that wrap up the lashon
thank you.
hara?
It's a pleasure to be with everyone. It could wrap it up. As more or less I said, what I could go through Chofetz Chaim if you want to, but I think more or less we go to the Shaloshim. And if anybody has any specific questions that they think haven't been addressed yet, so please either call me during the week or bring it up next week. And if not, we'll go on to another subject. If anybody has any suggestions for the next subject, we could do that. If anybody wants to talk about, one is about Emerson Sheker. I just worked on it recently in the yeshiva about when you're allowed to lie, not what's considered a lie, and also they're talking about Sunnis now, about what's considered late Sunnis. If anybody has different subjects you want to work on, so please let us know.
I think both of those subjects would be
Okay.
great. If everybody's comfortable with, would be great.
Okay, those are ones that are a little bit prepared because we're working on it in the kollel, so then then it won't be any extra preparation. So that's good. If it's good with you, it's good with me.
Also, maybe
Okay.
twice a week
Okay.
would also work.
Mentally wonderful. Okay,
Just throwing it out there.
If it's good to everybody, I would try to join with you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be,
Thanks, Rabbi.
getting back together.
Rabbi.
Beautiful. Thank you. Welcome everybody back.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. Have a good week, everyone.
Good night. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Shlomi, for getting all this together.